Hey, believers, how are you? My name is Andrea Reed, and I welcome you back to this Bible study. So, today we are in Exodus chapter 2. Exodus chapter 2 contains the early life of Moses as well as all the events that led up to Moses as an adult having to flee to Midian. So, Exodus chapter 2 picks up where Exodus chapter 1 ends. And this is where Pharaoh had put out a decree to all the Egyptian people to throw every Hebrew baby boy that was born into the Nile, but let every Hebrew baby girl live. So this is where Moses is born, right? This is under the conditions where he is born into, and his mother is faced with trying to save his life. So let's go straight into the scripture, which is titled The Birth of Moses. Starting with verse 1. Now, a man of the tribe of Levi married a Levite woman, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. Can you imagine having to do this with your own child? You know, this tugged at my heart. And so even for his sister just to have to watch this. So Moses' parents hid him for 3 months and by faith. And we know this because Hebrews 11:23 tells us by faith Moses' parents hid him for 3 months after he was born because they saw he was no ordinary child and they were not afraid of the king's edict. So could it have been that the same measure of faith that led his mother to, hide him for 3 months is the same level of faith that she had when she placed baby Moses in that basket in the Nile River? Not knowing, I truly feel this in my heart, not knowing how God was going to do it, but she just trusted God to save and protect her child. And believers, we do this ourselves. Can you reflect on this scripture just for a second? We do this ourselves with our own children every day when we send them out in the world. Even those who have adult children that no longer are under the care and protection of their own household, right? They're living on their own, right? We may not have the privilege of seeing them every day or talking to them every day, but we just trust God to save, guide, and protect our children around all hurt, harm, and danger. So, and Moses started out in great faith. His life started out in great faith. And the same level of radical faith that his mother had with him during the time that he was a baby trying to save his life is the same level of faith that Moses is going to have when he went before Pharaoh and confronted Pharaoh and said, this is what the Lord, the God of the Hebrews says, let my people go so that they may worship me. What courage, what faith Moses must have had to go before Pharaoh and say that. So, continuing on in the chapter, verse 5. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her female slave to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. This is one of the Hebrew babies, she said. So, believers, this was all a part of God's divine plan. I truly believe. Pharaoh's daughter finding baby Moses was not by happenstance, right? Even though her father had put out basically a death decree, basically that's what it was, right? For all the Hebrew baby boys to be killed, God still allowed for Pharaoh's daughter's heart to be touched when she heard baby Moses cry, right? Which in turn initiated those motherly instincts to want to rescue and save the baby out from the water. So, um, continuing on in the chapter, verse 7. Then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" "Yes, go." So the girl went and got the baby's mother. Look at God. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you." So the woman took the baby to, to so the woman took the baby and nursed him. When the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, saying, "I drew him out of the water." So, believers, again, I believe this whole situation was divinely orchestrated by God. Not only did God save Moses' life, set it up so that Moses' life would be saved, but he also set it up so that his sister could be present to suggest to Pharaoh's daughter to get Moses' own mother to nursing care for him. And watch this, and be compensated for it. Look at God. Won't he do it? So that just touched my heart, believers. Anyway, continuing on in the chapter, and this portion of the chapter is titled Moses Flees to Midian. Starting with verse 11, one day after Moses had grown up, he went out to where his own people were and watched them at their hard labor. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his own people. Looking this way and that, and seeing no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. The next day he went and saw two Hebrews fighting. He asked the one in the wrong, "Why are you hitting your fellow Hebrew?" Verse 14. The man said, "Who made you ruler and judge over us? Are you thinking of killing me as you killed the Egyptian?" Then Moses was afraid and thought, "What I did must have become known." So I'm not going to debate whether or not Moses was just in killing the Egyptian. Many theologians have debated this. I'm not even going to attempt that during this Bible study. I'll let you guys think about that on your own and process that on your own. But what I did want to process with you all is that even though Moses had been raised in Pharaoh's house and adopted as one of his own, Moses still identified himself as a Hebrew first and foremost. And that identity caused him to feel great emotion, inside when he saw one of his fellow Hebrew brethren in trouble and being abused, right? And so, what touched my heart about this portion of the scripture is Moses was willing to give, which he did, right? He gave up all that privilege, all that power, all that wealth that came from being under Pharaoh's family, you know, he gave all that up to save one of God's people. Not just his brethren, but one of God's people. That's what touched my heart about reading this portion of the scripture. So, continuing on, verse 15. When Pharaoh heard of this, he tried to kill Moses. But Moses fled from Pharaoh and went to live in Midian, where he sat down by a well. Now, a priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came to draw water and fill the troughs to water their father's flock. Some shepherds came along and drove them away. But Moses got up and came to their rescue and watered their flock. When the girls returned to Reuel, their father, he asked them, "Why have you returned so early today?" Verse 19, they answered, "An Egyptian rescued us from the shepherds. He even drew water for us and watered the flock." "And where is he?" Reuel asked his daughters. "Why did you leave him? Invite him to have something to eat." Moses agreed to stay with the man who gave his daughter Zipporah to Moses in marriage. So Zipporah gave birth to a son, and Moses named him Gershom, saying, "I have become a foreigner in a foreign land." During that long period, the king of Egypt died. The Israelites groaned in their slavery and cried out, and their cry for help because of their slavery went up to God. God heard the groaning, and he remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. So God looked on the Israelites and was concerned about them. So to close, believers, we see a constant display of courage, great compassion, and willingness to save others despite of adverse consequences that came from doing so to Moses, right? Moses didn't care no matter what. you know, he was so courageous, He was not a man that could just stand by and watch injustice go on. He had to act. And I think that was my takeaway from reading this chapter is as a believer, as a child of God, not to be one of those that can stand by and watch injustice go on and not do something to try to act to change it or to help others that are being oppressed, that are being abused, that are being victimized. Just not to stand by idly and just watch it, but do something to help and make changes so that this doesn't happen again. And God would later choose this same courageous man to lead the people of Israel out of bondage. So I pray that you guys enjoyed reading and studying this chapter with me. Read ahead as always. And for those who are watching this from my YouTube channel, please feel free to like and subscribe to my channel. And for those that are viewing this on other social media, please feel free to share this Bible study. As always, believers, be blessed. And until next time, see ya. Bye-bye.